be doing Missouri. So first I'll talk a little bit about Missouri's head coach, and then I'll talk some about the roster, and then I'll go through their schedule game by game and give you a predicted winner and loser for each game. So head coach Eli Drinkwitz enters his fifth season as the head coach at Missouri. It is his second head coaching job. He was the head coach at Appalachian State for one season in 2019, where he got them to a 12-1 record. And of course, he had a great season at Missouri last year, getting them to an 11-2 record. But I'm still not convinced that he's a great football coach because at Missouri before last season, he had a losing record there. He was at 5-5 in his first season at Missouri and 6-7 the second season, and at 6-7 the third season. And his overall record as a head coach is 40-22, and his overall record at Missouri is 28-21. And even bad coaches have a lot of times had one good season. Now, I'm not saying that Drinkwiz is a bad coach. I'm just saying that you can't know for sure that he's a great coach just because of one good season. But they do have enough coming back from last season and an easy enough schedule to where I think they can still have a good season this year. But I don't think that Missouri is becoming some dominant football program. I think after this season, they're probably going to go back to being more of an average team. But they returned 68% of their production from last season, which is a lot. So starting on the offensive side of the roster at quarterback, Brady Cook comes back, who is a third-year starter for them at quarterback. And last season, he became a good quarterback. He's one of the top quarterbacks in the SEC. He had last season 3,317 passing yards and completed 66.1% of his passes and had a 9 yards per throw average and threw 21 touchdown passes. And he also had 319 yards and eight rushing touchdowns. So they're in good shape at quarterback. And at wide receiver, they're in good shape here. They return Luther Burden, who is one of the best wide receivers in the country. He had last season 86 catches for 1,212 yards and nine touchdowns, averaging 14.1 a catch. And they also have Theo Weiss coming back, who had 682 on 49 catches and six touchdowns, averaging 13.9 a catch last season. And then they also have Mookie Cooper, who started 11 games and played in all 13 games last season and had 36 catches for 447 and averaged 12.4 yards a catch. And then at running back, they do lose that really good running back from last season, Cody Schrader, who was their best player on offense last year and became out of nowhere one of the best running backs in college football. I don't think they've got a good replacement really for him, but they're still going to be good, I think, at running back. They brought in two good running backs from the transfer portal. Now, they do come from littler teams, but they were good players where they came from. They have Marcus Carroll from Georgia State, who will probably be the starting running back, who had last season at 1,350 yards and 13 touchdowns on 274 carries, an average 4.9 a carry. And then they have Nate Noel, who had at Appalachian State in four seasons 3,074 yards on 541 carries and 18 touchdowns, averaging 5.7 a carry. And then their offensive line, I think, is going to be really good. They return three starters. They return center Connor Collison, who only allowed 17 total pressures and two sacks last season. And then they return right tackle Armand Mimboa, who only allowed 14 pressures and 2 sacks last season. And then they returned left guard Cameron Johnson, who only allowed 1 sack and 21 pressures last season. And then they bring in a really good offensive lineman from Oklahoma, Caden Green, who started 5 games for them last season and played in 11, and only allowed 12 pressures and didn't allow a sack in that. He was a 4-star recruit. Uh, and they also bring in a transfer from SMU, a good offensive lineman, Marcus Bryant, who only allowed 1 sack and 21 pressures last season. So I think Missouri's got one of the best offenses in the SEC, but the defense was good last year, only allowing on average 20.3 points per game. But I think it's taking a step back this year. They lose so much on that side of the ball. So starting on the defensive line, they lose their best player on the whole defense on the defensive line, who was a first round pick, Darius Robinson. I don't think they have a real good replacement for him, but they do return 2 starters on the defensive line. The best one is Johnny Walker, who had 43 tackles and 5 sacks and 3 forced fumbles and 14 total pressures last season. And then they bring in a transfer from Georgia, Darius Smith, who will likely be a starter this year. He was a 4-star recruit and didn't play much at Georgia, though. And at linebacker, they look solid here, just not elite. They returned Chuck Hicks, who had last season 53 tackles and 2 sacks and a pass breakup and a forced fumble and fumble recovery. And they also returned Tristan Newson, who had 51 tackles and 2 fumble recoveries. And he only started the last 3 games of the season, but played in every game. And then they bring in a transfer from Miami, Corey Flagg, who played in 35 games and had 164 tackles and 5.5 sacks and 13 total pressures and all of that. And then in the secondary, the safeties are good. They return Dalen Cornell, who is a really good safety, who had 51 tackles and 3 sacks and 7 pass breakups and 9 total pressures and 2 forced fumbles and a pick six last season. And then they have Joseph Charleston, who had last season 61 tackles and 4 pass breakups and 3 pressures and a forced fumble. But at cornerback, they don't look great here. They did bring in a transfer cornerback from Clemson, Corio Pride. He only started 3 games in his time at Clemson these past 2 seasons, but played 478 snaps, and he had 37 tackles and an interception and 9 pass breakups and a sack and all of that. But the other starting corner is questionable. And then on special teams, they lose a really good kicker who kicked a game-winning 61-yard field goal for them last season. So that is bad news. But they do return their punter. So overall, this is a pretty good roster. Defense is pretty average overall, and offense is really good. So now moving on to the predictions. They start the year against Murray State, which will be an easy win, and then they get another easy win against Buffalo, and then they have Boston College. So Boston College may be good enough to keep this one close for a while, but their defense isn't going to be very good, and they're not going to have the offense to keep up with Missouri, and Missouri will end up winning this one by at least 2 touchdowns. And then they play Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt's defense is going to be horrible and have no hope of slowing down Missouri's offense. And Vanderbilt's offense isn't very good, so they're not going to be able to have any chance of keeping up. I think Missouri blows them out. So then they have a road game against Texas A&M. This is going to be a really tough one. I think it'll be close. Texas A&M's offense, I think, will score a lot of points in this game, and I think their defense, being really good, will slow down Missouri's offense quite a bit in this game. They might be able to hold Missouri under 30, and I think Texas A&M's a little bit better. I know they're much more talented, and playing at home for A&M, I think they get this win. So then they play Massachusetts on the road. I don't know why that would be a road game, but it's not going to matter. They'll win easily. So then they play Auburn at home. So Auburn, I think, will be able to score a decent amount of points in this game. They're going to be able to run the football really well again, and I think they're going to be able to throw better this year. They've really upgraded at wide receiver, and I think Auburn's defense will be good enough to slow down Missouri's offense some. But Auburn still doesn't have a very good quarterback, and this game is at Missouri, and Missouri, I do think, is a little bit better, so I think they win a close one. So then they play on the road at Alabama. So Alabama's defense is going to be good enough still, even without Nick Saban, to slow down Missouri's offense some. They won't shut them down. Missouri will still score a decent amount, but they're not going to put up 40 something points, I don't think, on Alabama. Alabama's front seven will really slow down, I think, Missouri's run game. Now, Alabama's secondary isn't going to be near as good as last year, so Missouri probably will still be able to throw a lot in this game. But Alabama is going to be able to run the ball really well in this game. They've got maybe the best offensive line in the country and good running backs. And of course, Jalen Milroe is probably the best running quarterback in the country. He has the speed of a running back. To where I think they'll run for a whole lot of yards in this game. Missouri's defense, I don't think will really be able to slow down Alabama's run game, and Alabama, I think, will have success also throwing the ball in this game. They may not throw for 300 yards, but uh, Missouri, I don't think is going to be good enough in the secondary to uh, shut down Alabama's passing game. So I think this will be a fairly high scoring game, but I think Alabama wins by like a touchdown. So then they play Oklahoma at home. This will be a close one. So Oklahoma's defense is going to be great this year, I think, and Missouri's offense is going to be great. So that's an interesting battle. So Missouri's run game, I think, will get slowed down because Oklahoma's defensive line matches up really well with Missouri's offensive line, and Oklahoma's linebackers are also so good. Danny Stutzman is a player that can change the game by himself. He's so good. And Missouri, I think it will also get slowed down throwing the ball in this game because Oklahoma has a really good secondary too. And Oklahoma's quarterback Jackson Arnold, I think, will be playing better at this point because he would have had most of a season of experience. And Oklahoma is loaded at the wide receiver and running back positions. Now, Oklahoma's offensive line is not going to be great, most likely, but I don't really think Missouri has the defense to really be able to take big advantage of that. They might be able to slow them down a little bit, but I think Oklahoma is the better team, and they win even on the road. So then they play on the road at South Carolina. South Carolina's defense isn't going to be very good. It's not going to have any hope, I don't think, of slowing down Missouri's offense. And South Carolina's offense is going to have no hope, I don't think, of keeping up with Missouri. their offense isn't going to be very good either. So I think Missouri wins this one by at least a couple of scores. Uh, so then on the road at Mississippi State, a horrible team. Their defense is going to be terrible. It's going to have no hope of slowing down Missouri. Missouri will score 40 something or 50 something points in this game, I think. And Mississippi State's offense now has a good coach with Jeff Lebby there, but they don't have enough players to have any hope of keeping up with Missouri. So this will be a blowout, I think. So then they end the year at home against Arkansas. So this has kind of become a rivalry game. It could be pretty close. Now, I know it wasn't close at all last year. Missouri ended up winning it 48-14 was the final score. And Arkansas may be able to score more than that this time, with Bobby Petrino there now and Missouri's defense taking a step back, most likely. They can probably score 20 something points in this game, but I don't think their defense can slow down Missouri's offense really at all. So I think Missouri wins this one by at least a touchdown. So my final prediction for Missouri is 9-3 overall and 5-3 in the conference. So that will be it with this video, and please subscribe and thanks for watching, and I'll be back soon.